Imagine, if you will, being a chief financial officer at a Fortune 500 company right now.
Oh, that's got to be a stressful job these days.
Right. I mean, you open your inbox, you bypass all the emails from HR and legal, and sitting right there is an invoice. But it's not for, raw materials or commercial real estate.
It's not for salaries either.
Exactly. It's a bill for tens of millions of dollars, and the line item just says tokens.
Yeah.
Just that invisible digital fuel that powers your company's entire artificial intelligence infrastructure.
Yeah.
So welcome to the summer of 2026, everyone.
The landscape has definitely shifted.
It really has. The AI arms race has officially moved. We're no longer just fighting over who has the absolute highest intelligence score on some theoretical leaderboard.
Yeah.
The new battleground is the corporate wallet.
It's a brutal paradigm shift, honestly. I mean, we spent the last 3 or 4 years completely mesmerized by the sheer magic of what these large language models can do.
Oh, for sure. We watch them write poetry and pass the bar exam.
Right, and generate stunning images. But the honeymoon phase is over, and the bill has arrived. For a lot of enterprises trying to deploy AI at scale, that bill is staggering.
Which brings us to the mission of our deep dive today. We're looking at a stack of sources detailing the July 8, 2026 launch of Grok 4.5 by SpaceXAI.
A highly anticipated release.
Definitely. And for you listening, our goal today is to unpack whether this new model, which the documentation says is explicitly designed for coding, autonomous agents, and heavy knowledge work, is actually the silver bullet for this terrifying token bill shock that companies are facing.
Or if it's just, another beautifully hyped up tech release that falls apart in production.
Right. And I think it is vital to set the scene for the listener right away. Because if your reference point for the name Grok is that fun, slightly irreverent, unfiltered chatbot from your X feed,
You really need to completely adjust your expectations.
yeah, big time.
This iteration is Grok putting on a tailored suit, grabbing a briefcase, and marching straight into the corporate boardroom. I mean, it is designed to be a worker, not an entertainer.
But hopefully keeping just a little bit of that original spark, right?
We can hope.
Well, let's unpack this. Because to really understand why Grok 4.5 is making such massive waves across the tech sector, we first have to look at the sheer scale of the corporate machinery and the physical hardware that literally built it. You don't get a model this specialized by accident.
You definitely don't. And the infrastructure story here is fundamentally intertwined with the software story. You really have to look at the timeline to see the strategic maneuvering.
Right. Take us back a bit.
So back in February of 2026, SpaceX officially acquired XAI, rebranding the entire operation as SpaceXAI.
Which was huge news.
It was massive. And it wasn't just a cosmetic name change. It was a huge consolidation of financial and computational resources under one roof.
And they certainly did stop at just rebranding. The sources highlight that SpaceXAI is currently in the process of acquiring the coding startup Cursor for a staggering $60 billion.
Yeah, that number's...
Just really want to pause on that number for a second. $60 billion.
It's hard to even wrap your head around.
It really is. To put that in perspective, that is on par with some of the largest tech acquisitions in history. And they're taking all of this, plus tens of thousands of NVIDIA GB300 GPUs down in their Memphis supercomputer facilities to train Grok 4.5.
The scale of that Memphis facility is hard to overstate, but what's more fascinating to me is how they actually utilize those tens of thousands of GPUs.
What do you mean?
Well, the training for Grok 4.5 really departed from the older philosophy of just hoovering up the entire public internet indiscriminately. The sources emphasize a highly curated, almost surgical approach to the data pipeline.
So they weren't just scraping everything they could find.
Exactly. They focused on extreme data filtering, deduplication, aggressive quality scoring, and they massive over-indexed on STEM datasets. So science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay, wow.
But the absolute crown jewel in that training data, the reason for that $60 billion price tag, is Cursor.
Right. And here is how I'm thinking about that Cursor acquisition. And tell me if this analogy tracks, okay?
Let's hear it.
It's like SpaceXAI is a traditional car manufacturer. But instead of just pouring all their R&D into building a slightly faster engine, which would be the AI model itself, by buying Cursor, they went out and bought the actual highway system where the cars drive.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. They now own the roads, the traffic data, the moment-by-moment behavior of the drivers.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it, because the internet, as a source of high-quality training data, is essentially tapped out.
Right. Everyone's read the same public websites by now.
Exactly. But Cursor provides something literally no one else has. billions of tokens of real, granular, proprietary developer interactions.
So it's not just feeding the model a finished, perfect piece of code from GitHub.
It's the exact opposite, actually. It is feeding the model the entire human process of writing that code.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the AI is learning from the pauses, the backspaces, the bugs, the moments where a human developer highlights a block of text and asks a question, and then all those iterative fixes that follow.
That's incredibly detailed.
It is. When you inject billions of those real-world developer interactions into the Memphis supercomputer, you're teaching the model the underlying architecture of modern knowledge work. You're training it to understand how highly specific structured enterprise tasks actually get solved in real time.
Which is the holy grail for a company that wants an AI to actually do the work, not just, talk about it.
Precisely.
Okay, so SpaceXAI has built this massive, highly curated machine. But let's look at the economics, because a smart model that bankrupts you is just a useless model.
100%.
The core claim in these sources is that Grok 4.5 is incredibly fast and ruthlessly cheap to operate. The specs show it costs 2 per $1 million input tokens and 6 per $1 million output token.
And those numbers are aggressively priced for the enterprise market. And crucially, the documentation notes that cache hits are significantly cheaper.
Okay, I want to break that down for the listener, because cache hits sounds a bit like server jargon.
Fair enough.
If I'm understanding this correctly, if a company uploads a massive, like 100-page quarterly financial report and 20 different employees ask the AI questions about that exact same report throughout the day.
The AI doesn't have to reread and reprocess the entire document from scratch every single time.
Right. It remembers the core document, which drastically drops the compute cost for questions 2 through 20.
That is the exact mechanism. By holding frequently accessed data in a temporary, highly accessible memory layer, the computational burden just plummets.
And when the burden plummets, the cost drops with it.
Exactly.
Okay, so I saw the pricing, but cost savings usually come at the expense of latency. Like, if I'm deploying an autonomous agent to handle customer service routing or live code debugging, it needs to think fast. How fast is this thing actually generating text?
Well, the benchmarks from the sources show it running at roughly 80 tokens per second.
80 tokens a second. Just to visualize that, for you listening, a token is roughly 3/4 of a word. So you're watching a book print itself on your screen at about 60 words per second.
Which is blazingly fast.
Yeah, it's far faster than a human could ever possibly skim it. But here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly where I have to push back a bit based on the sources. I want to talk about the context window.
Okay, let's get into it.
The sources state Grok 4.5 has a context window of 500,000 tokens. That's the size of the model's active memory, like how much information you can feed it in a single prompt.
Right.
But the previous generation of this model had a context window of 1 million tokens. They literally cut the active memory in half.
They did.
So if you restrict the AI sandbox like that, aren't you severely handicapping its ability to process complex information? Like, is this 2x efficiency claim just a sleight of hand achieved by giving the AI less to think about?
It's a very sharp observation, and to understand why they did this, we actually have to look at the underlying math of how these models pay attention to information. It comes down to something called the quadratic scaling of attention mechanisms.
Okay, walk us through that. What does quadratic scaling actually mean for the CFO's server bill?
So in a large language model, every time you add a new word to the prompt, the model has to mathematically calculate how that new word relates to every single previous word in the context window.
Okay, tracking so far.
So when you double an AI's context window from 500,000 to 1 million tokens, the computing power required doesn't just double, it quadruples. The math gets exponentially heavier.
Oh, I see. So a massive context window is basically a financial black hole if you aren't careful.
It is. For those CFOs and CTOs who are trying to deploy agentic AI, meaning AI that goes off and executes a 20-step task on its own, having a massive, bloated 1 million token context window for every single microstep is a fast track to bankrupting your IT budget.
Right.
So by structurally capping the context window at 500,000, they are slashing the underlying compute requirements at a hardware level.
But they also introduced something called configurable reasoning, right? The documentation says you can set the reasoning dial to low, medium, or high, defaulting to high.
Yes, that's a big part of it.
Mechanistically, how does a software dial actually change how hard the AI thinks?
It operates by dynamically managing the model's compute budget. So when you set the dial to low for a simple task like, I don't know, reformatting a date column in Excel, the system either limits the number of internal computational steps the model is allowed to take, Or it routes the query to a smaller, faster subnetwork within the architecture.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then when you set it to high for writing complex Python architecture, it utilizes the full depth of the neural network. By combining this dial with the smaller context window, SpaceXAI claims Grok 4.5 solves token bill shock by using approximately half the tokens of comparable rivals to accomplish the exact same task.
I mean, having your token usage sounds amazing for the bottom line.
Mm,
But a cheap, fast model is completely useless if it hallucinates wildly, invents fake financial data, or writes terrible code that just breaks your product.
absolutely.
So to really see if these cost savings are worth the trade-off, we need to look at how Grok 4.5 actually performs when you put it to work. Let's dig into the benchmarks.
According to Artificial Analysis, which is a group that tracks these metrics, Grok 4.5 ranks fourth on their intelligence index with a score of 54.
Fourth place. So it's sitting behind the absolute top-tier models from OpenAI and Anthropic, though the sources do note it is ahead of the Gemini line and the OpenWeights models.
Correct.
But I have to say, fourth place on a general intelligence leaderboard doesn't exactly scream industry domination. If I'm a CTO, why am I buying the fourth smartest model?
Well, if you only look at that single generalized intelligence score, it does look a bit underwhelming. But remember the paradigm shift we discussed. The enterprise market doesn't care who wins a philosophical debate or writes the best sonnet anymore.
Right, they want results.
Exactly. They care about specific, verifiable workflows. And when you look at the specialized domain-specific benchmarks, Grok 4.5 is highly competitive.
Like which ones?
In coding benchmarks like DeepSWE and SWE-Bench Pro, it performs exceptionally well. And in agentic tasks, specifically things like the Tau-cubed banking benchmark, it is top tier.
I want to break those acronyms down for the listener because things like SWE-Bench Pro aren't just like multiple choice tests, are they?
Yep.
What do these specialized benchmarks actually measure?
They measure real-world execution. SWE-Bench doesn't just ask the AI to write a Python script from scratch.
Yeah.
It drops the AI into a real, historically broken GitHub repository.
Oh, wow. Like a real-world mess.
Exactly. The AI has to navigate the file structure, understand legacy spaghetti code it didn't write, propose a fix, run a virtual test, realize the test failed, and rewrite the fix across multiple different files.
That's intense.
It is. A high score there proves the model can actually do the grueling, unglamorous job of a software engineer. Similarly, the Tau-cubed banking benchmark tests whether the AI can navigate complex, multi-step financial regulations without hallucinating a non-compliant action.
Which proves it is actually viable for a bank to use.
Right.
And this leads us to what I think is the most mind-blowing part of the sources, the enterprise integration, the Office-native capability.
This is
Because Grok 4.5 isn't just sitting in a browser tab waiting for a chat prompt. The sources highlight that it natively builds complex Excel models. And we aren't talking about it generating a formula in a chat window that you have to copy and paste.
No, not at all.
It does web research, it generates multi-sheet formulas, and adds internal notes directly in the workbook. It creates professional Word documents. It generates PowerPoint decks with native shapes.
That transition from being a text-based advisor to a software manipulating doer is an incredible leap in capability.
But why is that so technically difficult? Because to a casual user, having an AI draw a box in PowerPoint might seem less impressive than having to write an essay.
Oh, it is exponentially harder because of the mechanics of the software. An AI chatting in a browser is fundamentally just predicting the next most logical word.
Right, like advanced autocorrect.
Basically, yeah. But an AI building a PowerPoint deck natively has to understand geometric coordinate mapping. It has to calculate the exact X and Y coordinates on a 16.9 canvas to place a blue rectangle.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, it has to interface with Microsoft's COM objects, which is the underlying code that runs the application, to inject text, apply formatting, and ensure the arrows align perfectly across multiple slides. It's translating natural language intent into complex application-level commands.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It crosses the barrier from being an intern you have to handhold to an intern who actually opens the application, does the formatting, and emails you the finished file.
And that ability is the core of what the industry calls plan, execute, verify flows. You don't just want an AI to write a snippet of code or draft one slide.
You want the whole project.
Exactly. You want it to plan the architecture of a presentation, execute the creation of it, verify that the data matches the source material, and fix it if it doesn't.
Which requires an incredible amount of orchestration behind the scenes.
It does. And that's why Grok 4.5's specific toolsets are so crucial. It has built-in function calling, meaning it can trigger external software tools on its own. It has native web search, deep integration with X, search for real-time data, and direct code execution capabilities. Furthermore, SpaceXAI has built an entire platform called Grok Build, where Grok 4.5 is the default model.
What does Grok Build actually do?
Well, it's specifically designed with a feature called workflows to orchestrate multiple different AI agents, say, a research agent, a writing agent, and a formatting agent, working together on these complex tasks. It is built for Opus class, heavy enterprise lifting.
Okay, this all sounds like an absolute dream for corporate productivity. Faster, cheaper, fundamentally restructuring my token bill, natively building my PowerPoint decks, and orchestrating teams of digital agents.
It sounds great on paper.
Right. But as with any massive AI rollout we've seen over the last few years, moving from a really impressive, slick demo video to reliable daily production use always reveals a lot of fine print.
Always.
We need to do a reality check on these sources.
It is essential to look at the limitations, because the gap between a controlled demo and live production is where enterprise AI projects go to die. First, we need to address the verification of these claims.
Okay.
Many of the 2x efficiency metrics, the claims that it uses half the tokens of its rivals for the same result, still come straight from SpaceXAI's own marketing and technical documentation.
Right. Wait a second. These 2x efficiency claims are coming straight from their own deck. They're grading their own homework.
That is the elephant in the room. While third-party benchmarks are starting to look promising, they are still very new. I mean, this model only launched on July 8th.
That's practically yesterday in enterprise time.
Exactly. The industry simply hasn't had the time to independently stress test those token efficiency numbers across thousands of unpredictable, real-world enterprise edge cases.
And that brings me to a major question I have about their overall business strategy.
Mm-hmm.
The sources explicitly point out that Grok 4.5's true value, like the real magic of its capabilities, multiplies when it is used inside Cursor or inside their Grok Build platform. But if you're just a developer using the raw API to plug Grok 4.5 into your own custom proprietary software, the advantage over competitors dramatically shrinks.
Isn't SpaceXAI just building a massive walled garden here?
It certainly looks that way.
Are companies essentially saving money on their token bills today just to get completely locked into the SpaceXAI ecosystem tomorrow?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question keeping CTOs awake at night. The deep integration with Cursor gives SpaceXAI a distribution and feedback loop that is incredibly hard for competitors to replicate.
But there's a catch.
But it absolutely means you're playing by their rules in their environment. If you just want a raw, standalone API to power your independent app, OpenAI and Anthropic are still fiercely competitive. Their prices are dropping, their capabilities are evolving week by week.
Right, it's not a static market.
This market is a moving target, and locking yourself into one vendor's ecosystem is a massive strategic risk. And even if you accept the walled garden, there are the traditional corporate hurdles to clear. Like, it doesn't matter how fast Grok can write a Python script if the legal team refuses to let you deploy it.
The true filters for enterprise adoption are rarely benchmark scores. It is security, it is compliance, it's service level agreements ensuring 99.9% uptime.
The boring stuff that keeps the lights on.
Exactly. It is data residency. Where are the servers actually located that are processing our proprietary data?
Right, especially with international laws.
Yeah, the sources note that the European Union rollout for Grok 4.5 only just opened in mid-July. Regulated sectors like banking, healthcare, and those European markets with strict data privacy laws, these will be the ultimate proving grounds.
That makes sense.
That is where we will see if Grok 4.5 can actually survive the rigorous, unglamorous demands of enterprise compliance.
So we have this incredibly powerful, hyper-efficient tool that excels at executing complex tasks and natively manipulating software, but it potentially forces you into its proprietary ecosystem and still has to prove its marketing claims to the corporate lawyers.
That's a fair summary.
Let's try to synthesize all of this. Based on this stack of sources, what is the core takeaway for you, the listener, navigating this landscape today?
Well, the core takeaway is that Grok 4.5 is a serious, highly credible player that fundamentally shifts the narrative of enterprise AI.
How so?
The conversation in boardrooms is no longer dominated by who has the absolute smartest, most philosophically capable model in a vacuum. It is now a brutal, practical calculation of who can deliver real-world, tangible results at the lowest total cost of ownership.
Okay, so if you are someone making tech stack decisions right now, you have a much clearer map of the terrain. You know exactly where Grok 4.5 shines. It is incredibly aggressive on cost. It is blindingly fast. Its native Office integration is a massive leap forward in productivity, and its coding capabilities, backed by billions of tokens of human process data from Cursor, are top tier.
But you also know where you need to exercise deep caution.
Right. You have to be wary of that ecosystem lock-in. You have to account for the mechanically smaller context window if you deal with massive document dumps. And you absolutely need to wait for those independent third-party benchmarks to fully mature.
It is a highly calculated trade-off. You are trading some generalized, broad conversational intelligence for hyper-specialized, cost-effective execution.
Which brings us to the end of our exploration today, but I want to leave you, the listener, with something to think about. We spent a lot of time analyzing the mechanics of how this AI was optimized to be the perfect corporate worker.
We have.
Looking at the trajectory mapped out in these sources, where does this hyperfixation on enterprise efficiency actually lead us?
It leads to a fascinating and somewhat daunting paradox, I think. We have spent the last few years optimizing models like Grok 4.5 to flawlessly write our code, build our spreadsheets, and orchestrate our daily workflows at a fraction of the cost.
Right.
But if these hyper-efficient models become the baseline infrastructure for every Fortune 500 company in the world, the competitive advantage of simply having AI drops to zero.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
If everyone's token bill is low and everyone's PowerPoint is instantly formatted by an autonomous agent, the technology itself is no longer a differentiator. The next battleground won't be about who has the cheapest, most efficient AI.
It'll be about us.
Exactly. It will be about what uniquely human ingenuity, creativity, and unpredictable strategy you can manage to layer on top of it.
It really puts that CFO's token invoice into perspective. You might finally get your compute costs under control, but the real challenge is figuring out what human value is actually left once the AI is doing all the heavy lifting. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. We hope your own efficiency remains high, your workflows remain uninterrupted, and your ecosystem remains open until next time. Keep questioning the fine print.